2, you got this.
Welcome. Another episode of Bottle Kill TV. I'm your host, Michael Roche. And with me, as always, we have the often imitated and never duplicated, the man, the myth, the real bottle killer, ladies and gentlemen.
How are we doing, people? Thank you for joining us.
And thank God, that was the fifth take I did. And we nailed it. So we got kind of like a part 2 today. We kind of got the Ardbeg, another Ardbeg review for you Ardbeg fanboys. And we're Ardbeg fanboys, so we're kind of excited to be trying a new one, which we actually haven't tried before. I bought this from Heathrow Airport, Terminal 5.
When was it?
It seems like November, so like months ago, yeah.
I think it was longer. I'm sure this has been out for quite a long time.
And they didn't have any available to test, to taste at the time. So yeah, I've not tried it. I'm looking forward to trying it. You know, one of my thing, the last 12 months, one thing that we've both really agreed on is our love for bourbon casks, classic whiskey notes, and we've really leaned into that. One thing you've really loved the last year is rum casks, and one of my discoveries of the last year is wine casks. So this is a red wine cask. This is a Coty Roti, the Ardbeg cask, the Ardbeg Smoketrails 2. So yeah, this could be really interesting for me, and really seems like right is up my street. You yourself, you're always a little bit. What's the word? You're always a little bit on the fence about Ardbeg releases nowadays, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, I used to just snap them up. It's funny you say that, because I think there's a couple of reasons I never actually got this bottle. So the first reason was the first Smoketrails, worst Ardbeg I've ever had. Sorry. But then still, this one comes out and I'm like, okay, it sounds good. It's like red wine finish from the south of France, one of the most expensive wines that money can buy. I remember my mum was like traveling somewhere. I was like on the fence about getting a bottle, and I still didn't end up with one. So we're trying it for the first time tonight. But I'm intrigued. Definitely, red wine casks are not my thing, but definitely excited to try this one.
Yeah, and again, I think we talked about it in the last video. If you haven't seen it, go back. We checked. We just did the Spectacular review, which was a release in April 2024, and this one I'm excited to go back to back. I always like when you've opened up the palate, and so we kind of got the Ardbeg flavor, the Ardbeg palate adjustment, which was a big jump. The first one that we had tonight was a Glenfiddich 14, which is just your classic. You couldn't get more of a classic Speyside whiskey than that. And then the first sip of the Ardbeg, I was like, oh, adjustment. We're in Ireland now.
Yeah. I mean, I think I had to revive my palate after drinking 3 shots of Hay Club in a row. But I'm warmed up. But
we won't talk about that.
I'm back. No,
we don't need context for that. You do what you enjoy to warm up for these shows. And
we're not going to talk. We're not going to talk about it. So
what are you getting on the nose straight away? Let's just jump straight into the nose.
It's more of the maritime kind of Ardbeg. Those kind of like coastal notes, salty, shellfish, less heavy on the smoke. And there is a sweetness to it as well, isn't there? So I think with the Spectacular that we just tried, there was a lot of fruit in that, but this is like softer fruits, kind of like red berries, more of like the red fruits.
I'm definitely getting
sweet,
the maritime.
Yeah, it's so maritime. It's like the classic kind of maritime notes that come through in the 10-year-old.
So I would say straight away, this is Ardbeg.
Yeah,
in terms of like it's unmistakable in terms of the nose, but the maritimeness, which sometimes I associate with different distilleries.
Yeah,
it's got that maritime on top of it.
Yeah, definitely. It's kind of it's difficult to explain to distinguish, because the Spectacular, you're like, oh, that's Ardbeg, and you're like, oh, that's Ardbeg, but they're like worlds apart. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's none of the maritime character in the Spectacular at all.
No, and I rarely get the maritime character from a lot of Ardbegs, to be honest. I don't usually associate the that so much.
I think you get it a lot. I think it comes through in a 10-year-old.
This reminds me most of the 10-year-old on the nose.
It does, yeah. I agree.
And colour-wise, it's not, considering it's a red wine cask, it's not not the
finished,
most colourful.
So it is.
Okay.
It's bourbon cask with the red wine finish. So again,
interesting.
I think that's where we get the 10-year-old comparison, probably.
Yeah.
And it's lighter because the 10-year-old's very straw, and then it is darker than the 10-year-old. But you would expect that because it's got the wine cask finish.
But only slight.
Maybe. I don't know. I think you'd probably be surprised if you did them side by side, just on colour. The Ardbeg 10-year-old is a very straw, kind of light coloured whiskey.
That's true. So the first thing that hits you when you try it is just the dryness.
Yeah.
You know, it does have the dryness. So even though it's a bourbon and a red wine cask finish, you've definitely got the dryness in the red wine straight away.
Yeah. Yeah, it kind of hit me. I was like, dry, bitter. Definitely doesn't come through sweet. Like, there's a lot of sweetness on the nose, but it doesn't come through in the arrival. The palate kind of just hits you, and it's like, boom, dry.
What is the? That's all I'm really getting. What is it you getting? Is you are getting the tannins, you are getting the dryness.
Kind of like,
but it's a little flat.
Yeah, it is quite flat, and I found that with the first Smoketrails as well. Is that, like, you know, we've just tried a whiskey that had incredible depth and character and like loads of layers to it, and maybe we're just kind of like, we've gone from like up here to like down here. But certainly, I mean, comparatively speaking.
Well, why are you judging the? Do you think it's the? Do you have the same? There's like a narrative, and I don't like to play into the narrative too much, but the narrative is like the travel releases across the board.
No,
have not been the best for.
No, like honestly, I had more of a preconceived narrative about the Spectacular than I did about this. Like, I feel like I was expecting more from this. You know, obviously expensive wine, probably expensive casks. And your kind of like expectations are high because you're thinking, well, you know, it must be good. Like, if they've gone to that trouble of like sourcing casks from this like really good vineyard, I guess I just feel like you say, it's flat. Maybe I was expecting a bit more. I'm not getting the depth of flavour.
Yeah.
I'm struggling. I mean, I've only had one sip, so
I did get the tar. You know, it's very tar heavy. On the finish. They also said, I just read the tasting notes, they mentioned cranberry as well. I'm not really getting the fruitiness of a cranberry in it.
I get salt in the finish. Salty kind of, especially if you lick your lips after. And I guess it's that like going back to the maritime coastal kind of flavours. But yeah, I kind of struggling a little bit to pick out anything other than the dry kind of tannic bitterness on the palate.
It is a little underwhelming in that respect, isn't it? I don't really know what I'm.
What are we looking for? What are we searching for?
Another hero.
Inside the Smoketrails.
Another mindless crime. Sign the circus of the pantomime. But yeah, it's kind of strange because all you're really getting is tannin from it.
Like, there is spice and there is smoke, but you do kind of have to really go looking for it and almost like hold it on the tongue and sort of like force yourself to find something. Whereas the spectacular, you kind of like, what's going on? What is that? You're trying to place it. It's like the whiskey is driving you, not you trying to drive the whiskey. If that makes any sense.
No. I know exactly what you're saying, and also there's a thing I don't think I've ever said before, but I've just thought of it as a thing. A really great whiskey is one that invokes memories. So it'll invoke memories of certain tastes that you're getting. Do you know, like I said with the Spectacular, there's like a childhood memory of Palmer Violets.
That's pretty profound.
And I think that's what a really good whiskey does. It takes you into different places where you recognize those tastes from, and that you unlock a memory. And that's a real pleasurable thing when you do. When something you haven't thought about for 10, 15, 20, maybe even 30, 40 years, and it unlocks it.
Pops into your head. Or like the old Pulteney, when it's like, if you just kind of like close your eyes and picture like the coast in Scotland, that's what it's giving you, isn't it?
It takes you.
It's like a connection between the flavors and like, you know, either a memory or, you know, somewhere that you like, you could picture yourself being there just while you're drinking that whiskey. It transcends.
Yeah, well, that one takes me to the Isle of Fair, you know, like the sea winds, right? Because we haven't actually been to Pulteney, but it's but yeah, this is kind of.
It's not taking you to the south of France, is it?
This is probably the most boring whiskey review ever because there are no notes. If you came for the notes, stayed for the stupidity, then I'm glad. But if you came for the notes, then we ain't got much for you. I'm sorry.
I mean,
you're usually pretty good at this as well.
Yeah, I'm struggling, I have to admit. But to be honest, I don't know. I mean, it's a while since I've been through an airport. But if you do see this and you haven't already bought it, I mean,
well, I've got to say, have you been to Terminal 5, the whiskey shop in Terminal 5?
Yeah.
Like, I don't like to be negative on this channel, but that is customer service wise, that's about as bad as you can get. That place, Manchester Terminal. It's either Terminal 1 or 2 have a whiskey shop there. You could meet more lovelier, helpful people. So like shots fired.
Is it like a whiskey shop or the duty free?
Well, it's called like they have I think it's all one.
Okay.
Well, duty free I think is the parent company, but they have their own little whiskey shop.
Got ya.
And the people are just just in terms of, well, I guess what you really get to go to is you know, when you go to Scotland, and so say you go to the Pot Still in Glasgow, or say you go to Cadenheads. I just went to Cadenheads in London, and there's a guy called Luke there. Just spent so much time taking me through everything. You know, what was the new releases, all these different things. Really knowledgeable. It's like the opposite in that place. You still trying to find something?
Yeah, I am trying.
It's like
trying hard. I'm
trying to find a treasure.
I feel bad. Like, people have tuned in for this, and I'm trying to like give something back. But
I'm rambling about Terminal 5. It's that flat.
Yeah, that's all I've got for you, I'm afraid.
That's the sign of a
disappointing.
very
And that's
average whiskey.
that's twice Smoketrails has disappointed me. So if there's a third, I don't even know if there's going to be a review.
Well, you know what the sad thing is about that not being good is that the first time the Smoketrails came out, the Smoketrails 1, there was a massive stall in Heathrow Terminal 5.
Yeah.
So it was outside of the whiskey shop. They had their own little. They still had none available to try, but they had this big stand.
Yeah.
And what they did was they really underwhelm people. So if they're really trying to grow Ardbeg as a brand and as a thing, and really put it in the eyes of people that don't usually encounter Ardbeg, then it was a bit underwhelming. Give Smoketrails as your first one, and you've got 1 liter of it, and it's hard to drink a whole liter of that stuff if it's not great. This one, Red Wine Cast, I thought it would be a little bit more. There'd be a little bit more of a richness to it.
Yeah, more depth, more kind of nice, you know, fruity flavors. Yeah, of course, like you do expect a bit of the the dryness and the tannins, but I think like the issue that I take with it, like we said, is it's almost like just overpowering. Yes, there is smoke in the background. Like the nose is nice, but again, like it's not a. There's no wow factor to it. It's nothing different to, you know, what I found in the 10-year-old, which I actually prefer, you know, 10 times more than this. But I think also like travel retail is an interesting beast because, you know, typically you're buying it on your way out, right? And like most of the time, if you're going on holiday, you know, maybe you're traveling for business, fair enough, different strokes for different folks. But if you're going on holiday, like somewhere sunny, you know, Caribbean, Mexico, wherever it is that what you want to drink? Like Ardbeg? No. I remember I went Mexico a few years back, and I bought. It's funny because we were drinking Glenfiddich earlier, and I think you talked about me liking rum casks. I'm sure it was a 21-year-old Glenfiddich, finished in a rum cask, and that's kind of like tropical holiday vibes. But like an Ardbeg finished in red wine casks, I'm not taking that to a beach with me. Do you know what I mean? It's something like, again, people that know, like, and are kind of fanboys of Ardbeg like we are would buy it. But like I said, if there's a third release, I'm not going to go looking for Smoketrails Part 3.
So just trying it again, it's got a bit more of a viscosity to it. It's got a bit more of a mouthfeel, but it's like a car crash between like smoke and tannins. They're just butting heads, but it doesn't create anything really.
It's kind of boring, isn't it? It's a bit of a.
I think that's a really good word to use for it.
Just boring.
It is boring. Yeah, it's very average, very boring.
Underwhelming. So.
Because it's not like oh man, that's disgusting.
No, it's not disgusting.
And sometimes
it's
you,
not.
Sometimes
it's not.
sometimes you have that whiskey, but this is.
I think that's fair. That's a fair point to make.
Just boring.
It's not a disgusting whiskey, but it's boring.
Yeah, and it's not that cheap either. I think it has 85 quid.
Yeah,
95 quid. And you get a litre of it. So like if you do the price per 100 milliliters, it's probably that takes it down. But it's it's boring.
Yeah. Bit of maybe toasted marshmallow coming through on the nose, but it's the palate, the finish. There's just.
But you see, it does have some mouthfeel to it, so it does have a certain thickness, which is Ardbeg are usually good for that. They're usually good to have like a full-bodied whiskey. But it just doesn't go anywhere from there.
It doesn't deliver, does it? So
it's just like dryness and smoke just kind of peters out. Pun intended.
I see that. So buy or not a buy? What is the question?
I think the Smoketrails too has left me hard begging for more.
More flavour.
More flavour.
Yeah, but not more.
More direction.
Not more Smoketrails.
And if there's a Smoketrails free, I'd like to see maybe something where there's a more obvious age statement where we can actually we can judge the quality of the whiskey a little easier.
Yeah, it feels like. Do you know what? It feels like they've kind of taken like younger bourbon cask matured Ardbeg, and put a few fancy finishes on that would pique the interest of a lot of kind of whiskey fans and lovers. Because I think Smoketrails one was Manzanilla,
which I don't know what that is.
Again, it's a type of sherry, but it didn't really seem to have any influence on. Well, I say any influence, like not much influence on the flavour of the whiskey. Like it was it felt like it was a short finishing period on a young whiskey, and again, like my disappointment has only repeated itself with this one because it reminds me a lot of the first one, which was disappointing, with a different cask finish, but also this cask finish is not making any difference to the original, because apart from like, yeah, okay, it's tannic rather than, you know, maybe it's got like
I wouldn't even think they were related in terms of a series. If you just put these two whiskeys in front of me, I wouldn't think they were related in terms of a progression or a story they're trying to tell between the two whiskeys. But they just the first one, and maybe it's because I'm not a big sherry cask guy, but it was very straw looking for a sherry cask as well. If the
you get like you
sherry
get
cask.
lots of different types of sherry, and like more of the, you know, the Oloroso and the PXs are the ones that will give you those really kind of dark flavors. So I think if you think about how like the sherry maturation happens, I think Manzanilla is more of a kind of desserty, you know, less rich, kind of more on the lighter, fruitier kind of side. But again, like maybe it was the wrong choice of cask.
So if you're talking about dessert wines, there's the Deanson Banuals, 8-year-old, which is they're just going to tell you it's 8 years old, but it's streets ahead of it. Of this, and maybe that's what I would look for in a travel release, is actually go for an age statement rather than experiment, because you really don't know what's inside it.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think they should tap into like people that they're picking these things up. I say like I think of like holiday. Obviously, you know, if you're going for whatever, you go into another country, you're excited. You're traveling. You go into a different country. You want an exciting whiskey to pair with that, and also like it's going to remind you of, oh, I picked this up when I went to Mexico or when I went to New York, like, and you want that whiskey experience to match up to the travel experience.
Drink spring back all the memories,
you know, and it's forgettable as well, boring, forgettable. So yeah, so should we round it out?
Yeah, so yeah, ask me the question.
So Ardbeg Smoketrails Edition 2 Coat Roti Edition, is it a buy?
Since we've been doing this channel, which is only about 12 episodes deep, but I think this is the first not a buy that we've ever had.
I'd agree.
And the fact that it's Ardbeg is a little bit disappointing, because yeah, we just did a spectacular review and they surprised us with some gold.
I know.
But yeah, it pains me to say it, and I the running joke of the channel was that everyone's going to be a buy because we're freaking whiskey nuts. But it's but yeah, it's really, really just boring. That's the perfect word to describe it. It's boring. I wouldn't bother. If you're going through Terminal 5, don't go to that whiskey shop anyway. Find cocaine heads before you get to the airport. What would you say?
I think it's unanimous. Look, like we've got 137 subscribers at the moment. I think if I called this a buy, there might not be a number 138. Got to be honest, like we say, disappointing, flat, boring, call it what it is. It's not a buy.
Yeah. So yeah, a bit of a somber mood in the Bottle Killer
to take it out
studios. So yeah, that definitely left us all begging for more flavor, and it was not spectacular. And I would it's a dud.
Absolute dud.
It's a dud. It's a dud. And not like an offensive dud, as in like it's like this is like a like we've had whiskeys on whiskey tours where you've been like, oh, that is, why have they even bothered to make that and put that in the glass? So it's not that type, but it's just a dud, as in like we expect better from Ardbeg.
We expect better. It's not like it's not like, you know, when you go to a firework display and they set off a firework and it goes pff, but there's no bang. It's not that bad.
but the firework then leaves no smoke trail.
No smoke trail.
And okay, enough of the shit puns. Another episode. Have had fun. I don't know if I had drinking the whiskey, but I've had fun anyway.
Definitely.
And Bottle Killer, take them out.
Yeah, well, yeah, definitely had a good time. Less said about the whiskey, but thanks for joining us. And remember, hit that subscribe button. Come back for more next time, and we'll see you again.